If you've played Grand Theft Auto 5, you know it's all about three men, Michael, Trevor, and Franklin. But do you really know their stories? The decades of betrayal, the messed up childhoods, the fake deaths, and all the dark, twisted details that happen before you ever load into the game. Today we're explaining every secret, every backstory, every single choice, from their first crime to their final fate. And there's only one place to start, with the man who kicked off the entire mess. The retired bank robber living a lie in a Rockford Hills mansion. Let's get into the story of Michael DeSanta. Michael DeSanta is a man full of contradictions. He once was a small-time crook from a broken home, then a master thief, and finally, believe it or not, a Hollywood producer. Before GTA 5 even begins, he's faked his death, betrayed his crew, and bought his way into a normal life that he doesn't even like. But Michael's story isn't just about trading crime for cameras. His story begins way back, probably in the mid-1960s. Michael grew up in a trailer park, a far cry from the fancy mansion he'd eventually call home. Unlike his own spoiled kids, Michael didn't have much. His dad was a real piece of work, an alcoholic and abusive who eventually just vanished. Michael's mom would tell him all sorts of wild tales about where his dad went. He skipped town, got hit by a train, or even joined the Navy. Can you imagine the kind of childhood that creates? Now, despite all that, Michael had some talent. In high school, he was a star football quarterback, the kind who'd get his picture in the paper. But his temper, combined with constant injuries, meant he had to hang up his cleats and leave the sport he was good at. It seems like even early on, Michael's own personality got in the way of his success. By the time he was 20, Michael had already spent time behind bars. Not once, but twice. Prison isn't exactly a charm school, but he did pick up some unexpected skills. You know, like tattooing his name on a cellmate's backside. His first score was in 1988, pulling in $10,000 from a small business outside Carcer City. He was good at this too. He became a sharp shooter and a natural leader for heists. This is also when he met Lester Crest, a true mastermind who would become a key player in many of Michael's biggest jobs. Michael's path truly collided with Trevor Phillips during a cross-border smuggling run. Trevor was waiting for his boss when he saw two dust trails instead of one. Out of the first car popped Michael, and out of the second, an older civilian Michael had just carjacked. As Michael tried to run, the civilian yelled to Trevor about what happened. Now, Trevor, well, being Trevor, didn't hesitate. He just shot the poor guy in the eye with a flare gun, killing him horribly. Then they dumped the body in a lake, and Trevor later described it as awful because the flare was still burning in the man's head. Both of them actually threw up from the smell. As horrific as it was, that moment showed them they made a good team. Michael took a liking to Trevor despite his madness and made him a partner. They had some solid wins for a while, but Michael later admitted they were always broke and always on the run. Trevor's violent outbursts often left a trail of bodies, and Michael's habit of quoting movies during jobs didn't exactly help them stay low-key. But with Lester and others by their side, they pulled off scores across the Midwest, always chasing that one big payday. In the early 1990s, Michael, Trevor, and another friend went to a strip club. That's where Michael met Amanda. She was originally interested in the other guy, but then she started flirting with Michael, and they began a relationship. Michael, using his ill-gotten gains, even paid for Amanda to get breast implants, which, oddly enough, helped her stripping and prostitution career. Who could have guessed? This even led to Michael running his own prostitution ring. After a few months, Michael and Amanda got married and had two kids, Tracy and Jimmy, all while still living in that trailer park. This is where Trevor began to see Michael as soft, because Michael was actually questioning his criminal life, worrying about his new family. In turn, Michael started to really dislike Trevor's unstable behavior, fearing he might one day hurt his wife and kids. Trevor later brought another criminal into the fold, Brad Snyder. Michael and Brad didn't exactly hit it off. They often didn't trust each other during jobs. Trevor even said Brad once planned to ditch Michael and just work with him. But Trevor, despite his wildness, stayed loyal to Michael. Then, sometime in 2004, Michael met Dave Norton, a corrupt FIB agent. They made a secret deal. Michael would cut ties with Trevor and Brad in exchange for a new life. Michael would pay Dave a hefty 5-figure sum every month month, and Dave would move Michael and his family to Los Santos with new identities. As part of this crooked deal, Michael ratted out their upcoming robbery of a cash storage place in Ludendorff, North Yankton. The plan was a twisted one. Dave would wait near their escape point with a sniper rifle. He would kill Trevor because Michael believed Trevor would come after him and his family if he found out about the deal. Shoot Michael, who would pretend to be hit but was actually wearing a bulletproof vest, and arrest Brad. This plan was supposed to be a win-win. Michael would get a clean slate, and Dave would get a huge career boost for supposedly taking down America's most wanted man. But as with most plans in the criminal underworld, things went sideways. A guard at the front gate was shot and killed. Trevor then killed another guard who snuck up on Michael and held him at gunpoint. When Michael, Brad, and Trevor tried to escape, they were ambushed by over a dozen police officers, forcing them to shoot their way out. Their driver was killed by police, so Michael had to drive them to the spot where he and Dave had planned to meet the helicopter. The escape almost failed when a train hit their car as they tried to avoid a police roadblock. Then Dave accidentally shot Brad instead of Trevor because Brad walked into the line of fire. Dave then shot Michael as planned, and Michael pretended to be bleeding out, begging Trevor to leave him behind. Trevor, completely enraged, shot many police officers and even briefly took a woman hostage before barely escaping with his life. Trevor was never caught and went into hiding, believing Michael was dead. After this, Michael Townley was officially declared dead and buried in the Ludendorff cemetery, but it was actually Brad who was buried in Michael's grave, having died from his gunshot wound. Dave and Michael both went to the funeral, with Michael watching from a distance. News reports claimed Michael was killed, Brad was imprisoned, and Trevor was still on the loose. Michael believed Trevor had eventually gotten himself killed, though he never got solid proof. Michael and his family, now using the surname De Santa, an old alias of Michael's, moved into a sprawling mansion in Rockford Hills, Los Santos. But Michael's new life, the one he sacrificed so much for, slowly fell apart. He became more and more unhappy, oddly missing his old life of crime, despite thinking he wanted a family life. He spent most of his days trying to escape the sadness by drinking, lounging unhappily by his pool, or cheating on Amanda with strippers. Amanda eventually caught up. Michael's neglect, self-centeredness, and his cheating led Amanda to blow a lot of their savings on plastic surgery and start cheating herself to get back at him. Their marriage devolved into a sort of open relationship. They wouldn't tell each other about their affairs. It wouldn't cost the other money, and it wouldn't happen in the house. At the same time, Tracy and Jimmy stopped respecting their dad because he didn't approve of their lifestyle choices. Jimmy was a lazy video game addicted stoner, and Tracy was a demanding girl who would do anything for fame. Suffering a midlife crisis and a failing marriage, Michael started seeing Dr. Isaiah Friedlander, an expensive psychologist who, frankly, didn't seem to care much about Michael's actual problems. At one point, Friedlander even gave Michael medication that made him cry, wet himself, fall asleep at dinner, and howl at night. Realizing he got the doses wrong, he thankfully took Michael off them. In 2013, 9 years after faking his own death, Michael was just leaving a therapy session when fate threw someone unexpected in his path, Franklin Clinton. The two crossed paths outside the office, and in a casual conversation, Michael unknowingly pointed Franklin and his friend Lamar toward a car they were out to repossess. Not long after, Michael's son Jimmy bought an SUV from Simeon Yetarian, a slick Armenian car dealer running a shady business full of fake credit deals. When Jimmy conveniently missed a payment, Simeon sent Franklin to repossess the car straight from the De Santa home. Franklin slipped quietly into the garage and found the SUV, but as he pulled out, Michael sprang up from under a pile of blankets in the back seat, a pistol aimed at Franklin's head. Calm and cool, Michael told Franklin to drive straight to the dealership. Along the way, he even joked about buying Franklin a drink. When they arrived, still holding him at gunpoint, Michael made Franklin ram the SUV through the dealership's front window. Then, tossing some cash Franklin's way, he sent him off before beating Simeon senseless, warning him to never mess with his family again. A few days later, Michael was lounging in his backyard, sipping whiskey and trying to drown out the sound of Amanda and Tracy arguing. That's when Franklin strolled in, having taken Michael's earlier drink offer seriously. Caught him off guard, but amused. Tapes. Michael agreed to hit a bar with him, but before they got there, Jimmy called. He tried to sell Michael's yacht, and the buyers had hijacked the trailer with Jimmy still on board. Furious, Michael and Franklin jumped into Amanda's car and gave chase. They managed to rescue Jimmy, with Franklin bravely jumping onto the yacht mid-chase to save him, though the boat was lost when the car's engine gave out. Michael was mad but secretly impressed by Franklin's guts. Not long after, Michael came home to find Amanda in bed with her tennis coach, who bolted in his underwear. Michael, burning with rage, called on Franklin again. The two chased the coach to a fancy house hanging over a hillside in Vinewood Hills. Michael wasn't done. He had Franklin attach a winch from their truck to the house's support beams and then ripped the deck right off the cliff. Franklin was stunned, but Michael felt like justice had been served. On the way back, Michael got a call from the coach. Turns out the house wasn't his. It belonged to the mistress of Martin Madrazo, the feared Mexican cartel leader. Madrazo's men came after them, but Michael and Franklin fought them off. Later, Madrazo himself showed up at Michael's house with his crew. Franklin warned Michael how dangerous this man was. Madrazo calmly asked for a bat, gave Michael a light smack, and then demanded $2.5 million to fix the damage. It was money Michael didn't have. The threat was clear: pay up or else. With no other choice, Michael picked up the phone and called an old partner, Lester. Michael tried to unwind with an old noir movie, hoping to escape the stress for a bit. But upstairs, Jimmy was yelling and cursing at his video game. Frustrated, Michael went up to tell him off. When Jimmy snapped back with an insult, Michael lost it. He hurled a chair straight at the TV. That only made Jimmy angrier. Michael, still seething, dared his son to hit him. But as quickly as the rage had come, it started to fade. He apologized and told Jimmy he was wasting his life. Wanting to reconnect, Michael convinced a grumbling Jimmy to go to Vespucci Beach for some father-son time. But even in the car, Jimmy kept arguing, blaming Michael for everything: his mental health, his life, all of it. At the beach, they had a quick bike race to the Del Perro Pier. Still mad about the TV and being dragged outside, Jimmy looked for a way to push back. He pointed out a fancy yacht nearby, casually mentioning that Tracy was on it with porn producers, possibly doing things she shouldn't. Michael, stunned and furious, realized Jimmy had only agreed to come to stir up trouble. He ripped off his shirt, dove into the water, and swam to the yacht. Once on board, he lost it. He tossed a speaker into the ocean and shoved a man off the boat. He grabbed Tracy and forced her onto a sea shark to take her back to shore. But the producers chased them, turning it into a full-blown shootout on the water. Michael managed to escape, but once on land, both Tracy and Jimmy walked away, still angry. Later, Michael met with Lester, an old friend with shady skills. Lester agreed to help him get the money he owed Madrazo, but only if Michael sabotaged a new phone that Jay Norris, the Life Invader CEO, was about to present to the world. Posing as an IT guy, Michael snuck into the Life Invader office. A programmer named Ricky mistook him for tech support and led him upstairs. Michael cleaned up Ricky's computer, swatting pop-ups and running antivirus. Then he found the prototype phone and secretly swapped in an explosive battery Lester had made. Back home, Michael tuned into the live broadcast of the product reveal. As Norris showed off the phone, Michael called it. The phone exploded next to Norris's head, killing him instantly and cutting the feed. Lester was thrilled and ready to help with the next job. Together, they started planning a jewelry heist. Michael wanted Franklin involved, believing it would be a good step for him. The robbery went off without a hitch. During it, Michael knocked down a traffic cop and quoted a line from a Solomon Richards movie: "You forget 1,000 things every day, pal. Make sure this is one of them." They paid off Madrazo and each got a cut. Meanwhile, out in Shady Shores, Trevor Phillips, thought dead after their last big job, saw a news report about the heist. The cop Michael had tackled repeated that movie quote, and it hit Trevor hard. Someone was either pretending to be Michael, or Michael had never died. Trevor sent Wade to track him down. When Wade came back with news that someone matching Michael's description was living in Los Santos, Trevor knew it was him, and he was going to find him. After laying low for a few days after the jewelry store heist, Michael went to the fridge and found weed inside. He instantly knew it was Jimmy's. That kicked off an argument with Amanda, and things only got worse when her yoga instructor, Fabian, showed up uninvited. Michael couldn't stand him and threw out some insults right away. Then Jimmy walked in, looking for his weed, and Michael started messing with him over it. Out of nowhere, Trevor showed up, shocking everyone. He looked around at Michael's messed up family and asked, "Where's Tracy?" Jimmy broke the tension, saying she was auditioning for fame or shame. Knowing how bad her dancing was, Michael and Trevor rushed to the Maze Bank Arena. They got there just in time to see Tracy doing a super cringy over-the-top dance. Then Laszlo, the show's host, jumped in and started dancing with her, and that was it. Michael and Trevor lost it. They chased Laszlo in a stolen truck all the way to the Los Santos River. Laszlo's car broke down, and Trevor made him strip and dance while filming it on his phone. Michael thought it was hilarious. Tracy, though, was furious, and Michael didn't even care, which only made things worse between them. Soon after, Michael got a call from Dave Norton, the FIB guy who helped fake his death. Dave knew Michael was behind the jewelry heist and told him to meet at the Galileo Observatory. There, Dave said the FIB was catching on, and if they found out about their deal, they'd both be in serious trouble. So he gave Michael a choice: help him with some jobs, and he'd keep covering for him. Michael agreed. His first job was to find a guy named Ferdinand Kerimov, who the IAA claimed was dead. Dave knocked Michael out to sneak him into the morgue. Michael woke up mid-autopsy, fought off one of the coroners, and searched the place. He found Kerimov's ID on another body and called Dave. Then he escaped and hit up Franklin. When they met, Michael told him about his past with the FIB and warned him to leave town. But Franklin decided to stay and help. He wanted to return the favor. That's when Steve Haynes came into the picture. Dave's boss, a high-ranking FIB agent and totally corrupt. He told Michael that Kerimov was alive and being held by the IAA downtown. Michael was now part of a team with Trevor and Franklin. He introduced them to each other. And then he and Trevor flew to the IAA building in a chopper while Franklin gave sniper backup from a nearby roof. Michael rappelled down the side of the building, busted in, and rescued Kerimov. The FIB took him from there. Later on, Michael and Trevor were called to a warehouse at the port. Michael was sent with Dave to kill another suspected terrorist named Tahir Javan. While Haynes and Trevor tortured Kerimov to get info on what Javan looked like, Kerimov talked, and Michael took Javan out. After all that, Michael tried to chill on the couch with a movie and a smoke, but Amanda walked in and got mad at him for smoking inside. Another fight. Then Fabian showed up and invited Michael to do yoga with them. Amanda didn't love the idea, but they gave it a shot. It actually went okay until Fabian pulled a weird sexual pose on Amanda. Michael tried to attack Fabian but missed and fell into the pool instead. Amanda stormed off with Fabian. Later, Michael asked Jimmy to hang out. They went to Burger Shot and met one of Jimmy's friends, who gave Jimmy weed and a soda. On the drive home, Jimmy convinced Michael to take a sip. A minute later, Michael started feeling weird. Jimmy then admitted he drugged the drink with ketamine. He pushed Michael out of the car, said he was taking the car and some cash, and told Michael he was moving out. Michael started hallucinating, got abducted by aliens, and fell from the sky. He woke up in his underwear a few blocks from home. When he finally got back, he found a note from Amanda. She said she and the kids were leaving him, this time for good, because of everything he'd done. So later on, Trevor hits up Michael and Franklin for a heist he's cooking up. The plan? Steal some mystery cargo from a private military group called Merryweather. Everything goes smoothly, but turns out Trevor accidentally stole a super weapon. Lester shows up right after and freaks out, saying it's way too dangerous, especially in Trevor's hands. If they don't give it back, they'll all be hunted down non-stop. Michael and Franklin agree to return it, and Trevor, super mad he can't keep it, lets it go anyway. Not long after, the gang gets called by agents Haynes and Norton for another job. This time, it's an armored truck full of drug money from the IAA. The agents are basically useless, so Michael suggests they do a classic Blitz play-style robbery. Despite heavy resistance from the cops and SWAT, they pull it off. Michael delivers the cash to billionaire Devin Weston, who offers him a deal. Help steal rare cars in exchange for a shot at working with Michael's movie idol, Solomon Richards. Michael jumps at the chance, and with Trevor and Franklin's help, pulls off the car heist. Eventually, Michael meets Richards, who hires him as an assistant. But there's drama. While working on the movie Meltdown, actor Milton McIlroy and his agent Rocco Pelosi, who's tied to the mob, try to force Richards to change Milton's deal. When Richards refuses, they get the director to stall production. Michael tracks down Rocco, beats him up, and takes Milton and the director on a wild helicopter ride to scare them into backing down. It works. Richards is impressed and tells Michael he's on track to become an associate producer. Then Martin Madrazo, the crime boss, calls in a favor. He asks Michael and Trevor to shoot down a jet carrying his cousin, who's on his way to testify against him, and recover some documents. Michael uses a remote sniper from a van to down the jet, and Trevor grabs the files. But when they return, Madrazo refuses to pay. Furious, Trevor attacks him and kidnaps his wife, Patricia, after noticing how badly Madrazo treats her. To stay alive, Michael hides out with Trevor and Patricia in Sandy Shores. Later, Haynes and Norton call up the crew for a dangerous job: break into the Humane Labs facility and steal a deadly neurotoxin. To afford the gear they need, like a cargo bob, they plan another heist. Rob the Blaine County Savings Bank in Paleto Bay. Trevor claims it's loaded with dirty money stolen by corrupt cops. While getting ready, Franklin calls Michael and Trevor. He's tracking the last of the O'Neill brothers, meth-cooking rednecks still mad about Trevor blowing up their lab. Michael and Trevor fly out, and using a thermal scope rifle, Michael snipes two of them. Franklin, with help from Lamar's dog Chop, takes out the last one. With stolen body armor and big guns, the team hits the bank. The job's a success, but most of the cash goes to Haynes and Norton so they can fund the Humane Labs mission, annoying the crew. While waiting, Michael and Trevor do one more job: rob a Merryweather train full of gold and valuable items to pay off Madrazo. Trevor crashes the train over Raton Canyon, and Michael drives into the water to grab the loot, including an ancient Aztec statue. Trevor's not thrilled with the item, but chills out when Michael brings up their dream score: robbing the Union Depository. Trevor says it can't be done, seems almost hopeless, but changes his mind when Michael challenges him, asking if he's too scared to try. Finally, the crew meets up with Haynes and Norton for the Humane Labs job. Haynes freaks out, realizing they need 3 more guys, something he forgot to mention. With no choice, Haynes and Norton help out. Michael and Norton go in for the toxin, while Trevor and Franklin handle the gateway. The job is a success, but as the chopper takes too long to leave, Haynes shoots himself in the leg to act like a victim and buy them time. It works, and everyone gets out clean. After making it back safely to Los Santos and sorting things out with Madrazo, Michael thought things might finally calm down. But then, bam, Trevor shows up at his house out of nowhere. He's got a wild idea: break Brad out of jail. Michael's not into it, and when he pushes back, the whole thing explodes into an argument. That's when Trevor finally pieces it all together. Brad isn't in jail. He's dead. And worse, he's buried in the grave that was supposed to be Michael's in North Yankton. Trevor bolts straight to Ludendorff to confirm it, with Michael racing after him. Sure enough, Trevor finds the truth at the grave, but before they can fully deal with it, a bunch of Triad goons show up. Turns out their boss, Wei Chang, wanted to meet Trevor. He'd hoped to partner with the O'Neill brothers before Trevor wiped them out. Even weirder, the Triads thought Trevor and Michael were a couple based on what they saw back in Sandy Shores. A shootout breaks out. Trevor escapes, leaving Michael to deal with the attackers. He gets captured and dragged back to Los Santos, ending up tied up in a slaughterhouse. Chang gives Trevor a call, saying if he doesn't show up, Michael's meat. Trevor, still furious about being lied to, plays it cool, tells Chang he loves Michael dearly, and hangs up, refusing to help. Chang doesn't take it well. He orders Michael tossed into a meat grinder, but just in time, Franklin and Lester swoop in for a rescue mission. Later, Franklin asks Michael what the hell went down in North Yankton. Michael finally opens up. He admits he betrayed Trevor back in the day to protect his family. He tries to dodge more questions by bringing up Devin Weston's car job, but Franklin says it's already done, and Weston stiffed them on the cash. Michael promises to deal with Weston the next time he's at the studio. And sure enough, back at work with Solomon, things go sideways again. He catches Solomon getting roughed up by Pelosi and his thug buddy Gianni. Michael jumps into action, chases them down, and kills them both. Grateful, Solomon names Michael an associate producer on his new film. Michael's over the moon. On his way out, he leaves Amanda a voicemail telling her he's finally doing something that matters. Something good. So Michael and Franklin get pulled in for one last job by good old Steve Haynes. The mission is to break into the FIB headquarters and erase some files that could expose Haynes as a double agent. Everything goes smoothly until Michael decides to delete the files on himself too. Just like that, Steve loses the leverage he had over him. Big move. Later at the court center, Michael shows up for what's supposed to be a debrief. But surprise, Haynes tries to have him arrested. Guns out, everyone's yelling, and then things go completely off the rails. The IAA shows up. A rogue FIB team rolls in, and Merriweather storms the place. Haynes gets shot in the leg but still manages to dip, only after killing Sanchez. Michael and Norton fight their way out, thanks to Trevor showing up with backup. And even though Trevor still hates Michael, he agrees not to kill him if they can pull off the Union Depository heist. Meanwhile, Michael's tired of being alone. With help from his son Jimmy, he manages to get the family back together. Things are finally looking up. He's got the house, the family, and he's working on Solomon Richards' new movie. But of course, that doesn't last. Devin Weston decides he's gonna wreck the movie and cash in the insurance to shut the studio down and build condos. Michael's furious. He chases Weston's lawyer all the way to the airport to grab the master copy. And here's a wild twist. She ends up getting sucked into a jet engine. Yeah, brutal. But Michael gets the film, and Solomon locks it down with a big premiere. At the premiere for Meltdown, Weston shows up, totally unhinged, and threatens to kill Michael's family. Michael rushes home and finds Merriweather mercs already attacking. He takes them out and protects his family. Then he sends them away for their safety this time. The next day, Michael calls Lester from the pier, still angry but ready to go ahead with the big Union Depository hit. He also helps Franklin rescue Lamar, who got kidnapped by a rival gang. Then the crew finally pulls off the heist, over $200 million in gold. Huge score. After that, Michael goes to see Dr. Friedlander, only to find out the guy's been using their therapy sessions to get famous. Michael's pissed. Friedlander bails and later sends an apology email, which Michael ignores. Now, here's where it all comes to a head. After the heist, both Haynes and Weston approach Franklin. Haynes wants Trevor gone, too unstable. Weston wants Michael dead, pure revenge. Franklin's got three choices: take out Trevor, take out Michael, or call them both up and go after their enemies instead. That's where Michael's story could go in a few different directions, depending on what Franklin chooses. So, if Franklin chose to kill Trevor, option A, here's how it went down. He called up Michael to let him know the plan. Michael said it was Franklin's choice, but was down to help if needed. Franklin tracked Trevor to the Murrieta oil fields, pulled a gun on him, and Trevor took off, starting a wild chase. Franklin called Michael for backup, and right on time, Michael rammed Trevor's truck, slamming him into a gas tanker. Gas spilled everywhere. Trevor crawled out furious, calling them traitors. They were his only real friends. Then one of them shot the gas, setting Trevor on fire. As they walked off, they talked about how Trevor was always unstable. They split up, and just before leaving, Franklin joked it was an illuminating experience. Michael told him to stay alive and that the rest was bullshit. Later on, they both stuck to their story. Killing Trevor was the right call, since he was just too dangerous. But after that, they didn't hang out anymore. If they crossed paths, Michael would say he needed space. Jimmy called Michael asking what happened, and Michael kind of admitted to being involved. That upset Jimmy. He stopped talking to Michael too. Then Ron, Trevor's buddy, emailed Michael, mad about Trevor's death and the lost business. Michael didn't care. He marked it as spam and told Ron to leave him alone. Also, Trevor's cut from the Union Depository job split between Michael and Franklin. Now, if Franklin chose to kill Michael, option B, it went down like this. Franklin called and asked Michael to meet in the desert. Michael showed up. While they were there, Amanda called. Tracy got into college. Right after the call, Michael realized what was going on. Franklin brought him there to kill him. He took off in his car, and Franklin gave chase all the way to the Palmer-Taylor Power Station. They ended up on a high walkway. They fought. Franklin pushed Michael off the edge, but then caught his arm. Michael hung there for a moment. Franklin could let go or try to pull him up. If he tried to help, Michael headbutted him, and Franklin let go. Michael fell to his death. After that, Trevor, Amanda, and Jimmy all figured out what happened and cut Franklin off. Michael's family sold the house, and they got his share of the gold. Now, for the ending most players say is the real one, option C, Death Wish. Franklin decides to save both Michael and Trevor, so he calls Lester, and Lester cooks up a plan. He leaks fake info to Haynes and Weston, saying the gold's being melted at a foundry. It's a trap. Both guys send in their forces, FIB agents and Merriweather squads. Franklin, Michael, Trevor, and even Lamar show up and ambush them. Once they clear out the enemies, they split the final hits. Trevor kills Haynes, scenes. Franklin takes out Wei Cheng. Michael deals with Stretch to keep Franklin's name clear. Then they all meet up again. Trevor had already kidnapped Weston and stuffed him in a trunk. They drive him out to a cliff, laugh in his face, and shove the car off. It explodes in the ocean. Game over for Weston. After all that chaos, Michael and Trevor finally bury the hatchet. The three agree to stay out of crime and stay friends. Michael later gets an email from Don Percival, Merryweather's CEO, basically saying thanks for killing Devin and helping him buy back shares. Michael ignores it. And if Michael and Trevor hang out after that, Michael actually apologizes and offers Trevor his share of the heist money. Trevor doesn't take the cash, but he does accept the apology. Finally, peace. In this ending, Michael stays at Richard's Majestic Studios. Fast forward to 2021. If Franklin happens to race through the studio chasing some golf carts, he might joke about hoping Michael's not working that day. It's a fun little nod that Michael's still in the game, living his Hollywood dream. And that is the complete complicated story of Michael DeSanta, a man who faked his own death and betrayed his crew for a new life, only to find out he was more miserable than ever. But you can't tell Michael's story without talking about Trevor Phillips, the man he left for dead. The man who spent 9 years believing his best friend was buried in a frozen grave. The man who is, without a doubt, the most unhinged, violent, and strangely loyal character in the entire series. Trevor Phillips is a complicated character. Before Grand Theft Auto 5 even loads, he's a broke drifter who's basically on crack, banned from the Air Force and wanted in 2 countries. After the credits roll, rumors say he's living in Vinewood, selling inner rage coaching to bored millionaires. But Trevor's story from crackhead to self-help guru isn't the entire story. Let's start by thinking about where Trevor came from. His childhood was far from ideal. He often talks about his mother, Mrs. Phillips, and not in a good way. It's heavily implied and sometimes outright stated through his own words and reactions that she was incredibly abusive towards him, physically, sexually, and mentally. No one could ever recover from this kind of upbringing. Whenever someone insults his mother or even uses a phrase like mother effer, Trevor gets extremely angry and defensive. It really bothers him. Interestingly, though, he never defends her memory as if she were a saint who passed away. His reactions are more about the pain she inflicted. Before he ever crossed paths with Michael Townley, the man who would become his closest partner in crime, Trevor was already a troubled individual. He mentions being a drifter up by the border, someone who was huffing gas and effing people over, killing, eating, whatever. He described it as fun, but admitted it was going nowhere. This tells us that the violence and chaos weren't things Michael taught him. They were already part of his nature. He even tried to find some structure by joining the Air Force. He had a talent for flying planes, a skill he apparently possessed even before enlisting. His dream, as he tells it, was to fly all day long and bomb villages and maybe, just maybe, drop the nuke. These aren't exactly the ambitions of a well-adjusted individual, but his military career was cut short. Just before he was supposed to get his wings, a psychological evaluation deemed him unstable. An evil witch, as he calls the evaluator, grounded him for life. So, the Air Force didn't make him crazy. He was considered unhinged even then, and this rejection likely just added to his frustrations and sense of alienation. Then came Michael Townley. Trevor was running a small air freight operation in North Yankton, moving less than legal cargo. He tells Lamar a detailed story about it.
And I don't know enough to check references, so I'm in. A few days later, I'm waiting on the runway. I see this dust coming up off the road, only it ain't one dust trail, it's 2. I got told 1 guy in cargo. First car comes through the gate, stops, someone comes out. It's my age, just 20, kinda fat but strong underneath.
Love at first sight.
Yeah, something like that. Other car comes through the gate. Old guy falls out, starts yelling and waving his arms and pointing at the kid.
The dude that got jacked?
Who fucking knows? Fat guy's running, old guy's shouting. I don't really care. I play peacemaker. Concerned citizen. I get close to the old guy and I pull out this flare gun I'm carrying around, squeeze the thing off in his eye.
Shit.
It was horrible. We had to pick up the body and dump it in a lake on the way. Thing was still burning in his head when we dropped him. Plane never smelt the same. Both of us threw up when we landed. It was quite a baptism.
He described it as horrible, with the body still burning as they dumped it in a lake. That was their baptism into a partnership. Trevor admitted that Michael didn't have the nerve back then, and he himself didn't have the direction. Together, they kind of worked. Michael had a huge effect on Trevor. While Trevor was already capable of violence, Michael, with his silver-tongued troll ways, as Trevor described him to Wade, pretending to talk about someone else named Trisha, persuaded him to channel his tendencies into organized robbery. Trevor found he was good at it. Michael didn't just become his best friend, he gave Trevor a purpose and, in a way, a surrogate family. Trevor grew close to Michael's wife, Amanda, and their children, Jimmy and Tracy. He became Uncle T to them. For Trevor, this connection, especially with the kids, was important because he knew what it was like to be ignored as a child. He was fiercely protective of Tracy, once telling Laszlo during the Fame or Shame mission that he'd rip the effing skin off anyone who effing wronged her because she had sat on his lap when she was 2. He was heartbroken when he thought he lost not just Michael, but the children as well, after Michael faked his death. Before things went south in North Yankton, another character, Brad Snyder, joined their crew. It wasn't always a trio of Michael, Trevor, and Brad from the very start. Lester talks about Brad almost as an afterthought when he talks about their past. Trevor himself said that after Michael went soft, he made a new friend called Brad, and was even thinking about cutting Mike off when everything fell apart. This shows that Trevor's devotion to Michael wasn't completely solid at that point, and he was thinking about taking a different path with Brad. It all came apart at the famous North Yankton job in Ludendorff. This was the heist where Michael planned to fake his own death with the help of a corrupt FIB agent, Dave Norton. The plan involved Michael getting shot by Dave, Brad getting arrested, and Trevor ideally getting killed or disappearing. The idea was to have a clean slate for Michael. They needed a body to pass off as Michael's, and Brad, being less known and now supposedly in the prison system, served that purpose. Trevor believed Michael died and Brad was in jail. He escaped, grieving the loss of his best friend, even getting a tattoo, R.I.P. Michael, to remember him. He also lost access to his share of their accumulated millions because, as he later told Michael, "You blew the identities," meaning their fake IDs and accounts were now useless or too risky to access. Trevor was on the run. For the next 9 years, Trevor stayed under the radar in Sandy Shores, a dry, rundown area in Blaine County. He picked this spot partly because it was out of the way, and partly because he thought Brad was locked up in a nearby prison. Maybe he wanted to be close in case there was ever a way to help him. During this time, Trevor started his own business, Trevor Phillips Industries. It was a small operation involved in selling drugs, mostly meth and weapons. He worked with a few people he trusted like Ron Jakowski, Wade Hebert, and Chef. They were loyal, but not especially skilled. Despite his past riches and his current criminal enterprises, he lived in a rundown trailer, though he owned an airfield. He claimed he liked being off the grid, in a place that was real and authentic. But perhaps there was also an element of self-loathing and guilt that made him feel he didn't deserve better. He always dreamed of being an international drug dealer, and Sandy Shores gave him a small taste of that, even if it was mostly just cooking meth and feuding with local gangs like the Lost Motorcycle Club. His relationship with the Lost was initially somewhat familiar, if not friendly, but he eventually decided to take them out to eliminate competition for his own growing enterprise, famously stomping Johnny Klebitz to death in a fit of rage. The reason Trevor came back into Michael's life was a news story about a jewelry store robbery in Los Santos. A witness quoted one of the robbers saying something that sounded exactly like Michael's old movie quotes.
You forget 1,000 things every day, pal. Make sure this is one of them.
This, combined with it being a jewel store job, was too much of a coincidence. Trevor sent Wade to Los Santos to find a Michael of the right age, married to an Amanda with 2 kids. When Wade confirmed Michael De Santa, Michael's new name, existed, Trevor was happy that his friend was alive, but also felt immense anger and betrayal. Michael had let him believe he was dead for 9 years, abandoning him. His arrival in Los Santos was explosive, to say the least. He crashed into Michael's carefully constructed new life, terrifying his family. During the mission, Bury the Hatchet, Trevor forces Michael to drive to the cemetery in North Yankton, where Michael Townley is supposedly buried. Trevor digs up the grave, only to find Brad's decaying corpse inside. The realization that Michael had set him up, that Brad was dead all along, and that he was likely meant to be in that coffin too, was a devastating blow. This thing, it didn't work out the way it was supposed to, Michael says, and Trevor retorts. Oh, how was that, huh? With Brad in the can and me in the ground? Or are both of us in the coffin? During the events of GTA 5, Trevor's complicated personality is very clear. He kidnaps Patricia Madrazo, the wife of crime boss Martin Madrazo. His motivations seem partly to punish Martin for a pay dispute and mistreatment of Patricia, and partly because he develops a strange, almost tender affection for her. This could be linked to his own mother issues, seeking approval or affection from an older woman figure that his own mother never provided. He eventually has to return Patricia to Martin to smooth things over, a decision that clearly pains him. Trevor also builds a strange relationship with Franklin. At first, he treats Franklin like just another guy to use for jobs, but over time, he starts to respect him in his own twisted way. His work with the corrupt FIB agents, Steve Haynes and Dave Norton, is more about staying alive and avoiding prison. He also hopes they'll help get Brad out of jail, though he doesn't know Brad is actually dead. The letters he's been getting are fake, written by Dave to keep Trevor in the dark. One of the darkest moments tied to Trevor is what happens to Floyd Hebert and his girlfriend Deborah. Trevor had been staying in their apartment, making their lives miserable. After one too many confrontations, things escalate. When Franklin later goes to the apartment, it's a bloodbath, and Trevor emerges covered in blood, saying, "Tragedy struck." The game doesn't explicitly show what happened. Speculation suggests Floyd, enraged, might have attacked Deborah with a knife, leading her to shoot him, and then Trevor killed Deborah in a rage. Beta files suggest an earlier mission idea called Paradise Lost, where Trevor was intended to kill both. Given Trevor's volatility and the state of the scene, it's clear he was directly involved in their violent deaths. Trevor's core principle, if he can be said to have one, is loyalty, however twisted his understanding of it might be. Loyalty is the code, he says. Kill strangers, protect friends, eat enemies. This loyalty, combined with guilt over letting down his friends, caused him to idolize Brad after North Yankton for getting Brad's negative traits. It was only much later, after forgiving Michael and himself to some degree, that he could admit Brad was a bit of a dick. This fierce loyalty is most evident in ending B of the game, when Franklin calls Trevor for help to kill Michael. Trevor, despite knowing Michael betrayed him and even wanted him dead, refuses. "You're turning on him? I have had enough traitors in my life," he tells Franklin. He wouldn't be part of such a betrayal, even against someone who had wronged him so deeply. This leads to the game's three possible endings. In ending A, Franklin and Michael hunt down and kill Trevor. Michael shows some regret, feeling it was a point where even assholes like us say enough is effing enough. In ending B, Franklin, with Trevor's refusal to help, kills Michael. The canonical ending, however, is ending C, Death Wish. In this scenario, Franklin refuses to kill either Michael or Trevor, and instead they team up to eliminate all their major enemies: Devin Weston, Steve Haynes, Wei Chang, and Stretch. Trevor participates partly to support his friends, partly for self-preservation, and perhaps because, deep down, despite everything, there was still a bond with Michael. He tells Michael, "I suppose it was a long time ago, and I suppose we had some fun here, and I suppose I made my mind up that he's a dick. But the people against us were worse, so I killed the bigger dick." And Michael lucked out. He admits he still hates Michael to some degree, but there's a sense of acceptance, even a twisted kind of affection. After this ending, Dave Norton, now in a more powerful position, is expected to protect all three of them from future legal troubles, meaning Trevor is no longer vulnerable as he was in Sandy Shores. What happens to Trevor after the main story of GTA 5? A side mission appears for him involving his mother, Mrs. Phillips. She suddenly shows up in his trailer, beating him for never visiting her in jail. She sends him to get some dilutamol pills. When Trevor returns, she's gone, vanished without a trace. This leaves players wondering if she was real or a delusion. Arguments can be made for both. Trevor isn't generally shown to hallucinate unless he's on drugs, and he didn't seem to be. Ron even leaves a Life Invader message asking Trevor, "Hey, are you going to introduce me to your mother?" suggesting Ron was aware of her presence. Michael also asks about her during a hangout, and Trevor says he doesn't want her to see him as he is. However, given her abusive nature and sudden disappearance, it's plausible she just got bored and left. More concrete information about Trevor's post-game life comes from the Smuggler's Run DLC for GTA Online, which is set in 2017, a few years after the events of GTA 5. Ron Jakowski contacts the player and mentions Trevor. He says, "That bastard my best friend. Oh, he's supposed to protect me forever? Then he goes all Vinewood on me? He's too important for Ron now, but he's a guru. He's a lifestyle coach. I don't know what he is. I bet he's got abs." This suggests Trevor has moved on from his Sandy Shores existence. He's embraced a new persona, possibly in Los Santos, Vinewood, and has become some sort of self-help guru or lifestyle coach. This might sound absurd for someone like Trevor, but given his charisma, intensity, and newfound financial stability and protection thanks to Dave Norton, it's a bizarrely fitting, if ironic, future for him. He has more money from the Big Score connections, and he's no longer forced to live in hiding. This guru path might be his way of channeling his unique energy, or perhaps it's just another elaborate chaotic venture. If Trevor never met Michael, he probably would have ended up dead or in jail much sooner. Michael gave him a goal, and even though things got messy, they made a powerful team for a while. Trevor's story is unforgettable because under all the violence, there's a real person who just wanted to be seen and understood. So, from a faked death to a 9-year-long burning rage, Michael and Trevor are two sides of the same chaotic coin, a criminal past that refuses to die. But the third man is the one caught right in the middle. He's the one trying to build a future. The kid from the hood just trying to get out, who has the spectacular bad luck of stumbling into Michael and Trevor's decade-old drama. Let's break down the story of the one who started our adventure by repossessing the wrong car. Franklin Clinton. Franklin Clinton never had it easy. Born in South Los Santos in 1988, he grew up without a father, lost his mother to addiction, and was raised by his grandparents. Even then, the streets kept calling. Hustling from a young age, Franklin dreamed of something bigger. By 2013, he was repoing cars and chasing quick cash, until a run-in with Michael DeSanta changed everything. But Franklin's story was just getting started. Franklin wasn't born with a silver spoon in his mouth, or even a plastic one for that matter. He popped into the world in Los Santos back in 1988. His dad was a total deadbeat, apparently a violent guy who took out his frustration on Franklin's mom, then just vanished before Franklin was even born. It's a sad thought, but maybe that's why his mom fell into a cocaine addiction, trying to escape her own pain. And tragically, that addiction eventually took her life when Franklin was just a little kid. Can you imagine losing your mom so young and knowing she was struggling like that? It's a heavy start for anyone. After that, Franklin went to live with his grandparents. His grandma apparently spoiled him rotten, but even with all that love, Franklin had that street hustler spark in him. One of his first ventures was selling cigarettes with his buddy J.B. Bradshaw. They were raking in the cash, feeling like big shots until his grandpa caught them. It shows Franklin's nature, even as a kid, always looking for a way to make a buck, even if it was a little bit on the wrong side of the tracks. When his grandparents passed away, Franklin and his aunt Denise moved into a house on Forum Drive, left to them by his grandma. He went to Davis High School, where he hung out with his lifelong friends, Lamar Davis and Tanisha Jackson, and his cousin, Tanya Wiggins. But Franklin's school days were short-lived. He got kicked out for slugging a teacher. Classic Franklin, always acting on impulse. Around this time, he fully embraced the gang life, dealing drugs, jacking cars, and doing small-time bank robberies with Lamar. Their first bank robbery, though, was a bit of a flop. They only got $2,000, and it was useless because a dye pack exploded all over it. He even worked for a local drug dealer named Marcus, who he later ended up killing. Yep, even back then, Franklin wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty. Now, about Tanisha. Franklin and Tanisha dated for a while, but she was never really on board with his gangster lifestyle. Her brother died in a gang-related incident, and she was terrified that Franklin's choices would bring harm to her too. So, they broke up. But it wasn't a clean break. They had a long history, tons of mutual friends, and neither of them really wanted to move on completely. Tanisha wanted to stay friends, and Franklin always held on to the hope that they'd get back together. She ended up finding someone else, a brain surgeon named Jaden, who represented the stability and security she craved, a world away from the chaos Franklin was still living in. She even moved in with him. Franklin, though, he just couldn't let it go. You see it in the game. He's always trying to impress her, calling her after his first big heist, thinking maybe money would change her mind. Lamar even calls him out on it, saying Franklin's only trying to improve his life to win Tanisha back. It's pretty clear he was hung up on her. Fast forward to 2013, and Franklin and Lamar were working for a shady Armenian car salesman named Simeon Yetarian. Simeon was basically a loan shark, selling cars to people who couldn't afford them, and when they inevitably missed payments, Franklin and Lamar would go repossess the cars. This is where Franklin's story in GTA 5 really kicks off. So, we first see Franklin on a repo job with Lamar, and guess who they bump into? None other than Michael DeSanta, though they don't know it at the time. Michael, completely by accident, points them right to the car they're supposed to be taking. Later, Simeon sends them to repossess a motorcycle from a Vagos gang area. Things go downhill real quick. Lamar pulls a gun, a shootout starts, and they barely escape. Lamar, being Lamar, just takes the bike for himself, and Simeon blames Franklin. This gets Franklin fired. But then Michael, whose son Jimmy bought a car from Simeon and was being repoed, was actually hiding in the back seat when Franklin came for it. Michael pulls a gun on Franklin and makes him drive the car right through Simeon's dealership window. Michael even pays Franklin for a job well done. After losing his job, Franklin remembers Michael's casual offer of a drink, and he goes to find him. This is where their strange but effective partnership begins. Franklin helps Michael rescue Jimmy from his stolen yacht, and then, in a fit of rage, Michael and Franklin chase Amanda's tennis coach to a house in Vinewood Hills. Thinking it's the coach's place, they pull down the deck with a truck, completely destroying it. Only problem? It wasn't the coach's house. It belonged to Martin Madrazo, a seriously dangerous drug lord. Martin shows up at Michael's house, baseball bat in hand, demanding $2.5 million for the damage. This forces Michael back into the crime game, and Franklin is right there with him. Meanwhile, Lamar drags Franklin into a harebrained scheme to kidnap a Bala gang member named D. They chase him through the streets, and with the help of Franklin's dog, Chop, they manage to catch him. But Lamar, being an idiot, accidentally gives away their location to the police while on his phone, forcing them to let D go. And then, just as things couldn't get more complicated, Stretch gets out of prison. Stretch, an older gang member, immediately clashes with Franklin. It's clear there's bad blood from way back, even before the game starts. Franklin sees gang life as a way out, a stepping stone, but Stretch believes in the old ways, the hierarchy, the idea that older members deserve a cut of everything younger guys make. Franklin wants to be a leader, to build something new, even forming his own small group called the Forum Gangsters. Stretch sees this as disrespectful, constantly hounding Franklin for a cut of his new earnings, even when Franklin's working with Michael and Trevor. The beef with Stretch isn't just about money or respect, though. It blows up when Stretch sets up a drug deal with some Ballas, which turns out to be an ambush. Stretch kills D, and the trio barely escape. Franklin is furious, realizing Stretch is bad news. Though Franklin is starting to understand, Stretch isn't just out to make money. He sees Lamar and Franklin as possible threats as part of his long-term plan to keep the gangs in line. Franklin is pulled deeper into Michael's world, meeting Trevor Phillips and Lester Crest, Michael's old partners in crime. Franklin accepts Michael's offer to join the Evangelico jewelry store heist, seeing it as his first real big score, a chance to prove himself. The heist is a success, and Franklin gets his cut, a taste of real money. He starts to distance himself from the families, which irritates Lamar and his aunt Denise, who constantly nag him about his disloyalty. Franklin just wants to get out, to make something of himself. One day, Trevor shows up at Franklin's house, uninvited. Lamar, being the loudmouth, tells Trevor about a drug deal Stretch arranged with the Ballas. Trevor, naturally, is all in. The three of them, with Chop tagging along, head to Grove Street. Lamar is about to buy a brick of cocaine, but Trevor, with his bizarre genius, snatches it and realizes it's fake, just drywall. A massive shootout starts, and they're forced to fight their way out, eventually escaping on jet skis in the storm drain. During this chaos, Franklin tells Lamar that he thinks Stretch set them up, and honestly, it wouldn't be the last time Stretch pulled something like that. The trio then attempts to steal an experimental superweapon from a private security company called Merryweather. They succeed, but Lester wisely tells them to put it back. Taking something that powerful would make them targets of every government agency on the planet. Even Trevor, after some convincing, agrees it's not worth it. Franklin's reputation starts to grow. He gets employed by the eccentric billionaire Devin Weston, who wants him, Trevor, Michael, and later Lamar to steal some rare cars. He also takes on assassination jobs for Lester, which eventually leads him to move into a swanky new mansion in Vinewood Hills, a huge upgrade from his old place on Forum Drive. During this time, Michael and Trevor are laying low after a job for Martin Madrazo went sideways. Franklin, trying to find them, accidentally stumbles into a showdown with the remaining O'Neill brothers, who are out for revenge on Trevor. Franklin, Michael, and Trevor team up to take them down in a dramatic chase through Raton Canyon, ending with Chop helping Franklin track down the last O'Neill brother. Franklin, Michael, and Trevor then pull off a daring bank robbery in Blaine County, hitting a corrupt bank full of dirty cop money. They get away with millions, though a chunk of it goes to Steve Haynes and Dave Norton, the crooked FIB agents who are blackmailing Michael. Things get complicated with Devin Weston. Lamar steals the last car on Devin's list, and Franklin, Lamar, and Trevor deliver the cars. But Devin, being a slimy weasel, refuses to pay them, promising to invest their money instead. This infuriates them all. Then, the big one. Franklin discovers Michael has been kidnapped by the Los Santos Triads while he was in Ludendorff. He tries to get Trevor's help, but Trevor, having just realized Michael betrayed him years ago, refuses. So Franklin, showing his loyalty and courage, goes alone to rescue Michael from a slaughterhouse. This is where he learns that Michael has been secretly working with the FIB to get out of the game, distancing himself from Trevor. Michael and Franklin are forced to do one more job for Steve Haynes, breaking into the FIB building to retrieve incriminating evidence. They succeed, celebrating their victory with Lester. But the calm doesn't last long. Franklin's ex, Tanisha, shows up at his door, frantic. Stretch, that snake, has set Lamar up again with a huge group of Ballas, holding him hostage at the Paleto Forest sawmill. Franklin, despite his frustrations with Lamar's stubbornness and inability to change, can't abandon his lifelong friend. He calls Michael and Trevor for backup, and the three of them, an unlikely but powerful team, storm the sawmill, taking down the Ballas and rescuing Lamar. On the way home, Franklin and Lamar have a heart-to-heart, arguing about Franklin always bailing Lamar out and Lamar feeling abandoned. They both agree that Stretch probably sold out to the Ballas while in prison. Franklin gives Lamar some tough love, telling him to clean up his act and get a real job. Right after dropping off Lamar, Franklin is cornered by Steve Haynes and Dave Norton. They tell him to kill Trevor, claiming he's a liability. Franklin tries to get them to make Michael do it, but Norton explains that Trevor doesn't trust Michael anymore. This puts Franklin in an impossible position, caught between two powerful groups and his complicated friendships. The trio then pulls off their biggest heist yet, the Union Depository, making off with millions in gold. They're at the top of their game, but the choices are about to get even harder. After the heist, Franklin is visited by Devin Weston, who orders him to kill Michael. Devin is furious because Michael caused the death of his lawyer, messed with his movie, and even tried to have his family killed. So Franklin is given three options: kill Trevor, kill Michael, or try to save them both. This is the moment of truth for Franklin, where all his loyalties and struggles come to a head. Option A, kill Trevor. Franklin meets Trevor at an oil field. Trevor, still naive about the meeting, is reminiscing about his friendship with Franklin, even as he complains about Michael. But Franklin, with a heavy heart, pulls a gun on him. Trevor is shocked, feeling utterly betrayed. He takes off in his truck, with Franklin hot on his tail. Franklin calls Michael for help, who eventually rams Trevor's truck, causing him to crash into a gas tank. Trevor, covered in gasoline, crawls out, cursing them both. Franklin or Michael shoots the gas, and Trevor burns to death in a fiery explosion. It's a brutal ending for Trevor, and Franklin and Michael try to justify it by saying his craziness led to his demise. Afterwards, Franklin calls Haynes, who agrees to take care of Devin Weston, but tells Franklin never to contact him again. Franklin and Michael's friendship is tense because of what they did, but they still hang out and keep saying they made the right choice. Jimmy, Michael's son, calls Franklin asking about Trevor, and Franklin lies, saying Steve Haynes' men killed him. Lamar calls, confirming his suspicions about Stretch, and goes into hiding, so he can only hang out at night. Tanisha calls to tell Franklin she's getting married and advises him to stay out of trouble. Lester splits Trevor's cut of the final heist between Franklin and Michael. Despite their shared experience, Michael eventually drifts away from Franklin, feeling indifferent and breaking ties. It's a lonely path for Franklin. Option B, kill Michael. Franklin meets Michael in the desert, pretending he wants to talk about their past, but Michael quickly realizes Franklin plans to kill him. He drives away fast, with Franklin chasing him. They end up at the Palmer-Taylor power station. The chase continues on foot until they reach a high walkway. After a fight, Franklin pushes Michael. Michael hangs on the edge, and Franklin can choose to help or let go. Either way, Michael falls and dies. Franklin feels heartbroken and full of regret. He calls Lamar, hoping they're still friends. He also calls Devin Weston, who says Haynes is already dead and Franklin is no longer useful. Trevor sends an email asking if Franklin killed Michael. Franklin says no, but Trevor doesn't believe him and tells him to stay away. If they meet, Trevor will be angry, saying Michael was better than Franklin and he would have forgiven him. Jimmy calls Franklin, first asking about his dad, then realizing what happened. He ends the friendship. Amanda, Michael's wife, also sends an email blaming Franklin and telling him to stay away. Lamar hides from Stretch and only goes out at night. Tanisha calls and says she's married now, and she tells Franklin to stay out of trouble. Lester gives Michael's share of the heist to his family, so Franklin and Trevor get nothing. This ending leaves Franklin alone, full of guilt and with fewer people in his life. Option C, the third way, save them both. This is the, quote, good ending. Franklin doesn't want to kill either friend, so he asks Lester for help. Lester makes a plan to get rid of all their enemies at once. They trick Devin Weston and Steve Haynes into thinking the gold is at a foundry. Franklin brings in Lamar, who stays outside as a lookout. Inside, Franklin finds Michael and Trevor arguing again, but he gets them to work together one last time. As agents from Merryweather and the FIB arrive, the three of them fight and win a huge gun battle. After the fight, Lester gives them the locations of their enemies. Trevor goes to kill Steve Haynes. Michael goes to kill Stretch. Franklin goes to kill Wei Chang. They each kill someone else's enemy, which helps hide their tracks. Later, the three meet again. They have kidnapped Devin Weston in his own car. Franklin smiles and says, "My bad, homie. I picked C. Ain't that a bitch?" They make fun of Devin and push his car off Mount Chiliad. It falls and explodes in the water. It's a fitting end for the greedy billionaire. After that, they agree to stop doing crimes but stay friends. As a surprise, the CEO of Merryweather thanks Franklin for killing Devin because it helped him buy back company shares cheaper. Tanisha still calls to say she's getting married and reminds Franklin to stay out of trouble. It's a little sad, but now that their enemies are gone, Franklin, Michael, and Trevor can live free and keep their friendships. Franklin finally takes control of his life and grows as a person. So, what happens to Franklin after the main story of GTA 5? If you played the contract update in GTA Online, you'll know Franklin is doing really well, and it's a big upgrade. He got a huge payout from the Union Depository heist, somewhere between $9 million and $42 million, based on how you played. He used that money wisely, making good investments and going straight. Here's the big news. Even though Tanisha married Jaden, the brain surgeon, at the end of GTA 5, things didn't last. At some point, they got divorced, and Tanisha got back back with Franklin. Yes, that really happened. They got married, she moved into his fancy house on Wispy Mound Drive, and they started a family. If you visit his house in GTA Online, you'll see kids' toys, a backyard slide, and a sign that says, The Clintons. Their kids are even old enough to be in school. Lamar was right all along, telling Franklin to stick with Tanisha. It's like Tanisha saw that her stable life with Jaden wasn't what she truly wanted, and Franklin, now grown up and successful, became the guy she needed. Some of her social media posts even hinted at how different she and Jaden were. She never fully left her old life, even after marrying him. In 2021, Franklin becomes a real businessman, starting F. Clinton and Partner, a celebrity solutions agency for the rich and famous in Vinewood. Basically, he helps rich people with their problems, from stolen stuff to keeping secrets quiet. He brings in Imani, the smart daughter of an old friend, and even lets Lamar join the business, even though Lamar still does wild stuff. And yes, Chop is still around, now old but still loyal. Franklin even stays in touch with Michael, and a guard at his office mentions turning away Trevor, showing he's still linked to his old friends, even if they're not working together like before. The main story of The Contract is about Franklin helping Dr. Dre. Yes, the real Dr. Dre. Dre's phone with unreleased music on it was stolen. Franklin meets Dre at a golf course, and after some typical rich people drama, Franklin and the GTA Online protagonists, that's you, end up crashing into two annoying golfers with golf carts. It's a wild but funny start to a big new job. Franklin and Imani go after three people who played Dre's stolen tracks: a Vagos game member, a Triad member, and a crypto billionaire. They take care of all of them, get the music back, and finally find out who still has Dre's phone: Johnny Guns, a producer with a long fight with Dre. Franklin and the GTA Online protagonist help Dre deal with Johnny's private army and finally catch Johnny so Dre can face him. The Contract also brings in short trips where we see more of Franklin and Lamar's friendship. DJ Pooh invites them and the GTA Online protagonist to Dr. Dre's studio. Lamar tries to rap and Franklin gets high with the protagonist. When Lamar tries to smoke too, Franklin tells him Tanisha won't like it, hinting that they're still married. Lamar, always chasing wild ideas, starts a weed business called LD Organics. He pulls Franklin into his crazy ideas, like raiding Vagos warehouses, or trying to make a deal with a strange actor from the Epsilon program, Jimmy Boston. Franklin, now smarter and more careful, warns Lamar about the dangers of the Vinewood crowd and how tricky they can be. One of the funniest parts is when Lamar builds a van that's made of weed. Franklin asks, "How you gonna smoke it if it's part of the van?" Classic moment. They try to get Jimmy Boston to promote the brand, but it all falls apart when the Vagos show up, leading to a big shootout. On the way back, the weed van starts burning in the sun, and they both get really high. Lamar, in a wild idea, drives it to a nightclub. The crowd smells the burning weed and starts cheering for LD Organics. It's messy, but it works. Franklin, always the one thinking ahead, says he has to get home to Tanisha. Lamar tries one time to pull Franklin in, offering him an internship, but Franklin just walks off like a boss. Most recently, in late 2023, Franklin was invited by DJ Pooh to the 10th anniversary party of the West Coast Classics at a nightclub hosted by Dom Funk. As part of the radio station's promo, DJ Pooh gave out media sticks with a recorded mix of Dom Funk's Even the Score for people who missed the event. At the 20-minute mark of the mix, Franklin tries to give a shout out to DJ Pooh on the mic, but Lamar grabs it from him, upset that Franklin is always winning and tries to give a shout out too. Franklin interrupts him and Dom Funk ends up calling nightclub security to break up their fight over the mic. So, while Franklin has grown and become successful, some things never change, especially his relationship with Lamar. If you want to see more stories like this, click the video on screen now.